So you have to put in your heart, out of the heart proceed evil thoughts, murder, envy, malice, strife, wickedness, variance, adultery, fornication. It comes out of here, out of here. Not this just pumps blood. Oh, the kids can go to class. I forgot, the little ones. They gone already? Okay. So out of the heart, what comes out of the heart? Remember that old saying, what's in the well will come up in the bucket? Yep. Whatever's in your heart is what comes out of your heart. So what you put in is what comes out. Now, if you're addicted to filthy magazines, that's what's in your heart. And that's what will come out in your actions. If you're addicted to, I never was fond of Friday the 13th, never seen Friday the 13th movie. But now if you're addicted to people taking axes and cutting people and chopping them up, I'm just assuming that's in there, I don't know. But other stuff like that, if you feed that to yourself, if you put that in your heart, then you get to the padded pews of daybreak. It's no wonder the sermon doesn't affect you. It's no wonder we're 3/4 the way through the worship service before it dawns on you we're singing a song. Amen. Preach! Okay. So you have to put the right things in to get the right things out. Thank you so much, Jamie. I'm just encouraging you all throughout the week. Put good stuff in there. Yesterday I had a book I've got a book I'm going to give Kennedy, and I was reading some of it before I wrote into it. I always make my kids write their name and the date of anything they give me, or my grandkids, because I save it all, and I want to be able to look at it later. And I called my daughter the other day and took a picture of a little plaque that had an old tractor on it, and I hung it up on the wall, and I said, this was a gift from Cameron. And she sends me back a text, says, when in the world did he ever give that to you? And I just took it off the wall and turned it over, and there it was, 2011. So I knew exactly when it was. So I turned it back over and hung it up and sent her back a text. I said, I got that for Christmas 2011. She said, how did you possibly remember that? I didn't tell her I wrote it down. She thinks I've got a good memory. At least I've got her fooled. I don't have the rest of you fooled, right? So put good stuff in there. Commit to memory good things like the Bible and verses. And when you're young, goodness, you young folks, do it now. Because when you get older, it just takes wings and flies away. You'll be sitting around talking to somebody, and you'll say, you know that guy that, what's his name? You went to school with him. You grew up with him. You went fishing with him. Y'all used to go to the fair together. Do you know what made that happen? Well, learn it now. Years did it, yeah. Learn it now. Young ladies, young men, learn it now. Commit it to memory. Braden, you're still young. What are you, 21? You remember, yeah, it's easy to remember your anniversary. All you got to do is forget it once. Oh, yeah? Deli Plus? Subway. That's right. Take me somewhere. Which just is in keeping with his normal lying, right? Yeah, just as full. Was your anniversary recently? 7th of August? I didn't know that. I'd have got y'all something. I know, but I would have got... I didn't write it down. I did write it down, Trent, but I gave them the piece of paper I wrote it on. Yeah, I've got to have it in front of me or I'm not going to remember. Yeah. Oh, I remember marrying you, and I know where I married you, and I remember what I said. I said, do you, and y'all both said, I did, and whatever. And it's a done deal. I said, it's a done deal. And we threw cooked rice, I think. And refried beans. I think that's what we threw, but I'm not sure. But, so back to what I was saying that was important before I got off onto this, before Danny did this to me. Commit to memory good things, and then rehearse them in your mind, and read good things, listen to good music, and make it so that when you get here, you said on this last week, and it looked really comfortable to me, so I'm going to do that this week for a while anyway. And so when you get here then, it's easier to get into that frame of mind that you need to be in for worship and to hear the word and to absorb it. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever was listening to music and all of a sudden you're a nervous wreck? You couldn't figure out why. I've been going down the road and a fast song be on a CD or I started to say a tape. I have tape player in Charlie Brown, you know, and I put a tape in there. I've been playing old tapes in there. But a fast song will come on. I look down at the speedometer and I'm going 75. Why? Because the music is driving me. And then there are other times you can put one in there that just soothes your spirit. You think that doesn't work? Ask King Saul. When he was just a nervous wreck, he would say to David, please get the harp and play something. And I don't think David just beat on those strings until he broke them. I think he played a melody that just soothed and softened the spirit of Saul. So do that. Practice that. If you've been, I'm talking to somebody today, and I don't know who I'm talking to, but I'm talking to somebody. Part of your problem is what you're putting in your heart. Part of your problem. You can come in and greet your husband or your wife right after you fed the wrong thing here, and you'll have a whole wrong attitude, and you'll say it wrong. It'll come out wrong, and your mate or your child will notice something's wrong, and part of the problem is what you fed this, because that's what came out of here. His mercies are new every morning here. If you're here today and you're looking for mercy, it's here. This is a collection of people who forgive and love and care about people. So, I don't know which button. There we go. There's the revival just reminding you. Saturday night, the noblemen are singing. Do something that will last for eternity. See it right there? Do something that will last for eternity. This week, I want you to pray for lost people. Pray for sick people. Pray for needy people. Pray for discouraged people. You want me to tell you a good way to come out of your discouragement? You won't think this is right, but I'll tell you a good way to get out of your discouragement. Pray for someone else.
That's right.
You want me to tell you a way to feel really good about yourself when you're feeling really bad about yourself? Go do something for somebody else.
Yep.
You want me to tell you a way to feel rich when you think you're poor? Go give something you've got to somebody in need. So, well, I didn't have very much. Just do it, I'm telling you. You want to feel good about your life? Write to somebody. Write to someone. You say, well, cards are expensive. I think that's a trick of the devil to make a card cost $4.59. A sheet of paper doesn't cost that much. Don't let Hallmark say it for you. That's a trick of the devil. We men, we rush in to get that last Valentine's card. They've been picked over and there's 3 left, and they started out with 1,000. There's 3 left. We grab it out of there and we underline love and we underline forever. And then we put an exclamation mark and sign our name. I wouldn't blame any wife who looked at that and said, I don't think much went into that except the $4.59 it took to buy it. Throw the card away and get yourself a piece of paper and write down there how much you love your mate. It's cheaper and means more.
Can you take a picture of the card and then just
I hadn't thought of it, but it won't work real well with my camera, with my phone. But it is a great idea. Thank you, Jamie. It's going to save some people money. We all know it, and we're going to read it together. I didn't type it all out, but it's right here in the book. It's called the 23rd Psalm. Can you go there? And if you know it, you can quote it. As I read it, you might just want to say it. If you miss a word, nobody will know. If everybody says it good and loud, nobody will know you missed one of the words. Hey, you can't memorize everything, right? So you know the first line? That's right. Let's start right in. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. I ought to stop there just for a minute and let that soak in.
Yes.
The Lord keeps me from wanting. If you've got Him, you've got enough. In fact, if you've got Him, you've got more than enough. You've got all you'll ever need, so you won't have to want. You won't have to want if you have Him. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Verse 2. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for His name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for Thou art with me. Thy rod and Thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We're reading the last verse, verse 6, one more time. The one that starts with, surely goodness and mercy. Are you ready? Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So Micah, can you just leave that one locked on there? Yeah. Say goodness, and mercy. My few minutes of fame this morning will be about this. Todd, I'm so glad you're here. Richard, you worked this week. Bless you. Your family's here today. Bless you. You're going to be glad you came. If you're not already, you should already be. I'm going to talk to you about being a bum. You heard that word bum? You've heard people say, she's a bum, he's a bum. Usually they associate with a guy. He's just a bum. I never was quite sure where it come from, but it's a term that shepherds use. That's where it come from. At the rear of the flock were the bums. They were lambs or ewes that were old and could not keep up. One time, some of the young folks with Moses said to Moses, they said, we need to hurry up and get to the promised land. And Moses said, well, we can't go any faster. Why? And there's young people or energetic people in Christendom that just want to hurry up. And Moses said, well, we can't go any faster. Why? And here's what he said. The old sheep and the aged will die. It would be easy for me, not necessarily for me because I'm aged, but if the pastor standing up here this morning were in his 20s and he was in high gear and he was saying, come on, let's get this train moving. It would be easy to just run off and leave me behind. Ewes, that's a female sheep, would bear a lamb. And when the lamb is born, the ewe, the mother, marks the lamb with a scent. Now Danny his mare had a colt here not long ago, and Danny went down there just as soon as the colt was born. It was born like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. But the first thing Danny did is he went down there and he rubbed his hands all over that colt, over his ears and his neck and his legs, over his whole body. And why did you do that? He imprinted that colt with his own scent so the mother and the colt would know him, not be flighty, not be afraid, would be accustomed to him. Ewes, mother sheep, imprint their baby with a scent. And I am told that you can have a flock of sheep, hundreds of them, and turn the lambs loose, and the mother will find her lamb by scent. But sometimes, and it happened when I was a boy growing up, and if you were a farmer growing up, and some of you were, you will remember that sometimes a ewe would have more than one lamb. They would have twins or even triplets, but she could only feed one of them. So what would we do? Well, we'd bring the little baby lamb they usually lamb in the winter time, going into cold weather, or coming out of cold weather. We'd bring the baby lamb in our house, and Daddy would put it in a cardboard box behind our old drum stove because that was our heat. And the lamb would stay warm in there, and they had the cutest little, you've heard them. And when they get hungry, they'd start making that little noise, and we'd take a Pepsi-Cola bottle and put a nipple over it and let them suck the milk out of that Pepsi bottle. And in shepherd terms, they were a bum. They couldn't make it on their own. And in a flock, you'd find the bums at the rear. And it might be a ewe that the lamb had died. It might be a sheep that was weak or sickly. In fact, in large flocks, entire new flocks of sheep were formed when enough bums were at the rear. You could break off that group and start a whole new flock. I want to talk to you about bumming at the rear of the flock. Bumming at the rear of the flock. You know, if you've been converted, you don't get converted once. For all those people who think you pray through one time and that's it, forget it. Right. Mm-hmm. If you've been converted, you're going to get converted and converted and converted and converted and converted. Because you're going to get damaged. You mentioned it last week about Mephibosheth, his nurse running out with him. You know, there have been people who, in an effort to save them, got damaged. Somebody was trying to save them. Maybe it was the pastor. Maybe it was someone in the flock. But they got damaged, got hurt, and they were trying to save them. And they stay lame for life. And they never get over it. You know anybody like that? And you know, some people don't grow like other people do. Have you seen some people and they're much, much smaller? Maybe, do you know there are people who are little because when they were small, they didn't get fed a good diet? They didn't have, you see kids growing nowadays and you say, I can't believe how big that child is and how much they're growing, and their dad's 6 feet tall and they're 6 feet 5, their dad's 6 feet 5. Don't you worry about Trent's children? I mean, most every child is taller than their parent. Liam will have to have a custom-made automobile or drive something with a sunroof so he can stick his head out and see where he's going. People get damaged on the road to salvation. They're not here and you don't know who they are, but I will tell you a story how people get hurt and end up bumming at the rear of the flock. Sometime in my pastoring, I had a brand new couple come to church. Now, they were an older couple, and I'm always thrilled when somebody new comes. So when they showed up, they came early. You know how some people, if it's the first time they're going to come, they'll want to come a little early so they can get a seat in the back. Right? You can tell when people, if you've got a full church, you can tell who comes to church late. Why? They have to sit up front. Yeah. So these people came, it was their first time to ever come, and they came, and sure enough, they sit down in the back. And so I went back there to meet them, and I introduced myself. I'm Pastor Michael, and they told me their name, where they're from. And turns out they had been Christians and gone to church, but somewhere in their walk with God, they had been hurt, damaged. Maybe somebody fell on them, I don't know, like Mephibosheth, but they were injured. And it turned out, I found out later, that one of the younger people in our church, a young lady, a married young lady and her family, was surprised to see them because it was her relatives. And she was shocked. And she got there and she said, oh my goodness, they haven't gone to church in years. And here they were on our pews at our church. And that morning, a couple who usually arrives late came in. And the lady, the wife of the husband, came over to the pew where they were sitting and said to them, do you all mind moving? And they were as stunned as you. And, excuse me, they said, we always sit here. At first, they didn't know what to do. But the lady just stood there and said, this is our seat. We've been coming here a long time and we always sit here. They just kept saying this until finally the people got up. Except they didn't just move. They left. It wasn't very far from where they were sitting to the door, and the door is where they went. Well, I was crushed. So I went to visit them, and I tried, and I apologized on behalf of the other people. And in fact, the other people didn't even want to apologize and didn't. Now, that family, that older couple, had been bumming at the rear. They'd been damaged. They'd been hurt. In their walk with God, they limped. And now they were probably damaged beyond help. A lamb whose mother has died will be back at the back of the flock. And you know what the lamb will be trying to do? Find a mother that they can get nourishment from. But guess what? The mother that doesn't smell the scent of her own lamb will kick that lamb or butt that little lamb. And the lamb will grow weaker. and fall farther behind and farther behind. And the little lamb is back there trying to bum some nourishment. Maybe he or she will look out, maybe not. But they're bumming, and that's where the term come from. And are you ready for the verse one more time? Surely goodness and mercy will follow, will lead, will follow. Who's back there making sure I make it? Who's back there where I'm bumming and trying to survive? Who's back there where I'm limping and weak? Where I'm damaged and hurt? Who's taking care of Mephibosheth? Who's checking on the couple? Goodness and mercy. And that's what you'll find. Here's one that won't leave you behind. Here's one who will check on you. He said, I am not willing. Help me. Well, there's that one that's all scrawny. I'm not willing that. I know, but that one's got lice or mange or the bad leg and can't keep up. I'm not willing that. What about the bums? I know I've shared it with you before, but in case you hadn't heard it or forgot it, remember the little boy whose mother sent him down to the corner grocery store to pick up a couple of items, and it was in the afternoon late, just before dark, and it was just a short trip down there and back, except he didn't just come right back, and the darkness was coming, and she became frantic, and she went out and looked for him and called for him. She was just about to panic, and all of a sudden she saw him, and there he came up the sidewalk, riding his bike. She grabbed his bike and she grabbed him and said, where have you been? He said, I stopped at Tony's because his bike was broke. And you've had that mixture of I want to beat your rear end, but I'm so thrilled you're safe. Yeah. Huh? If you're a parent, you know what I'm talking about. When Micah was about a little older than Liam, maybe about Liam's age, he got on his tricycle and rode off from the house. It was late in the evening. I was pastoring 2 churches at the time. It was a Bible study night. When I come out, my front yard was full of police cars when I got home. What in the world? I got in and they said, your son is missing and we're searching for him. He got on his tricycle and went out in the street and just started pedaling. Straight. Has anybody ever had a child and they just took off walking and you hollered for them to come back and they never even bothered turning around? Yes. Huh? Finley Rose. No, Liam does this with Katie. If he decides he's going to the barn, when he leaves the house, he heads down to the barn, swinging those arms, and she'll say, come on, Liam, we've got to go home. He's deaf. He's lost his hearing. It doesn't matter how loud she says it or what she threatens him with. He's on a one-trip mission. He's headed that direction. He's going to the barn. And Micah got on that tricycle and started pedaling as fast as his little feet would go. And he was 3 blocks. He'd gone 3 blocks away. And you know where I found him? Some lady called my house and said, do you have a little boy that's missing? Well, as a matter of fact, I just checked and there is one gone. You know, I went down there and he was crying. She said she heard him crying on his tricycle. He was crying real loud, but pedaling where all his feet would go. It was tears of joy. What he thought he had broken loose. He was free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, he was free at last. And, well, of course, I wanted to whip him. But I was glad to see him. She said, why wouldn't you? Tony's bike was broke. She said, you don't know how to fix bikes? No, he said, I just stayed there and helped him cry. You know, if you can't fix it, maybe you could just be there. Maybe you could just find one of those at the back of the flock, one of those bums. You don't have their answer. You're not a psychologist. You're not a psychiatrist. You're not a cure-all. But maybe a card would make a difference. Maybe a little note, not from Hallmark, but from you. Maybe a text or a phone call would make a difference. Maybe a visit. Maybe you could just find a bum somewhere and help him cry. Darwin said the fittest survive. That was his final answer. The strong will survive. Jesus said, so will the weak if I have anything to do about it.
Right.
Because I'm not willing that any will perish. Well, how are you going to keep that from happening? Well, back there at the back of the flock, I got a couple of old boys named Goodness and Mercy, and they're bringing up the rear. Listen, 'twas grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. I needed it then. I need it now. I'll need it tomorrow. I haven't arrived and neither have you, but until you draw that last breath, you're going to need it and you better give it. It was goodness and mercy that found a prodigal in a pig pen while he's down in the mud feeding pigs and swine and smelly. It was goodness and mercy that got down in with him and said, hey, your daddy still loves you. What? Yeah, you bum. You bum. Your father still loves you. Why don't you get up and turn yourself in? Danny, I'm thinking about Mr. Way, the guy who used to live on my farm years ago. Danny and I would go down and play mandolin and banjo, and he played the fiddle. And when he'd say something that he really wanted it, if he thought it was kind of tough or he wanted to bend over the nail, he'd say, Ugh. That's the way he'd finish the sentence. Ugh. That's a tough line, but can I hear a even if you won't say amen? Remember that song? Oh, love of God, how rich and pure, how measureless and strong, it shall forevermore endure. The saints and angels song. I love when Paul wrote it in Romans 8. He said, I'm persuaded. You don't think it's in there? I'll read it to you. Listen, I'm persuaded. Not death, not life, not angels, not principalities, not power, not things present, not things to come, not height, not depth, nor any other creature will be able to separate me from the flock, from the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus my Lord. Micah, can you hit the right button on that so I can play that? In the book of John, chapter 13, listen, it's the very first verse. It said that Jesus, having loved his own in the world, get it? Having loved his own in the world, talking about his disciples. Say it with me, having loved his own in the world. Finish the sentence. He loved them to the end. He loved them to the end. I'm about done. Give me a little more of that there, yeah. You may be a bum, but you're not going to be left behind by him. You may be back there dragging one leg saying, I don't know how I'm going to make it. Well, I'm telling you how you're going to make it. Goodness and mercy are not going to abandon you. They're right behind. They're following you. You slow down some and fall a little farther away from the flock. They're here. They're with you. Goodness and mercy. I need mercy. You need mercy. I needed it when I first came to him. I still need it. Stand with me.